Imagine finding out your husband of 5 years is having a secret affair, and instead of crying, you completely dismantle his life. She didn't scream, she didn't throw plates, she just quietly engineered his absolute financial ruin. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Hazel. Grab your coffee, because today's drama is next level. Settle in, because this story is a masterclass in why you never cross a quiet, intelligent woman. Our main girl today is Calliope, who thought she had the perfect modern marriage. Was the breadwinner, working as a high-level data analyst, making incredibly good money. Her husband, Vance, was a freelance consultant, which is a nice way of saying he worked 10 hours a week. Vance was one of those guys who always wore tailored suits and acted like he owned the room. He had this unchecked arrogance, always talking down to waiters and bragging about investments he didn't actually understand. Calliope loved him because when they first met, he was charming, attentive, and seemingly driven. But over the years, Vance's charm curdled into deep, toxic entitlement. He started treating Calliope's bank account like his own personal piggy bank. He would buy expensive golf clubs and weekend trips, claiming it was for networking. Calliope let it slide because she loved him, and honestly, she was too busy working to micromanage his spending. But Calliope was observant. She started noticing small, bizarre changes in Vance's routine. He started guarding his phone like it contained state secrets, taking it into the shower with him. He also changed his passcode, which he claimed was a required security update for his consulting gig. Then there was the sudden obsession with his appearance. New cologne, teeth whitening strips, the whole cliché. Calliope wasn't born yesterday. Her gut was screaming that something was fundamentally wrong. But she didn't snoop immediately. She waited for the perfect, undeniable opportunity. That opportunity came on a Tuesday night when Vance came home exhausted and had a little too much wine. He fell asleep on the couch, snoring loudly, his phone slipping out of his pocket onto the rug. Now Vance thought he was a genius for changing his passcode, but he forgot one crucial detail. His phone was synced to his old tablet, which was sitting in the back of his home office drawer. Calliope quietly stepped over his sleeping body, walked into the office, and booted up the tablet. It didn't take a password to see the notification banners flooding the lock screen. The messages were from a woman named Seraphina. Calliope opened the app, and her entire world stopped spinning for a second. It wasn't just a physical affair. It was a completely parallel life. Vance and Seraphina had been seeing each other for 8 months. Reading the messages, Calliope felt a cold, sharp pain in her chest, but then the anger took over. Seraphina was complaining about how Vance needed to finally leave his boring source of money. Vance replied, "Just give me a few more months to drain her bonus, babe. Then we're out of here." He was literally planning to steal her end-of-year corporate bonus before abandoning her. Most people would have stormed into the living room and smashed the tablet over his head. Not Calliope. She took a deep breath, sat at the desk, and started taking screenshots. She sent every single incriminating photo, text, and voice note to a secure, hidden cloud drive. She spent 3 hours backing up years of financial documents, bank statements, and tax returns. When she was done, she put the tablet exactly where she found it and went to bed. The next morning, Calliope poured Vance his coffee and kissed his cheek, smiling like nothing happened. The first phase of her 180 IQ revenge was securing the perimeter. She scheduled a consultation with the most ruthless, shark-like divorce attorney in the city. Let's call this lawyer Gideon. Gideon took one look at the evidence and actually smiled. Because Vance was a freelancer, he had completely commingled his imaginary business expenses with Calliope's personal accounts. Gideon explained that with a forensic accountant, they could prove Vance was embezzling marital funds. But they needed time to build an airtight, inescapable trap. For the next 3 months, Calliope lived with a man she absolutely despised. She washed his clothes, listened to his lies, and played the supportive, oblivious wife. It took every ounce of her willpower not to spit in his morning espresso. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, she was quietly removing her name from joint credit cards. She opened a new private bank account at a completely different institution. She routed her massive end-of-year bonus directly into this untouchable account. She also noticed Vance was planning a lavish getaway to a tropical resort for Seraphina's birthday. He had used a joint credit card to put down a non-refundable deposit. Calliope waited until the absolute last minute, just 3 days before their flight. Then she called the bank, reported the card as compromised, and had it frozen. The resort tried to charge the remaining balance, and the transaction was violently declined. Vance was in an absolute panic, frantically calling Calliope while she was at work. He spun a wild lie about a stolen identity and needing her to wire him $5,000 immediately. Calliope, sitting at her desk sipping a latte, simply said, "Oh no, honey, I'll handle the bank." She didn't wire a single cent. Vance's romantic getaway completely collapsed. Seraphina was furious, blowing up his phone, demanding to know why she was packing for a staycation. But freezing the trip was just the appetizer. Calliope was ready for the main course. Vance had a massive pitch meeting coming up for his consulting business. It was a local networking event where he had invited all of his potential high-net-worth clients. He rented out a private room at an upscale restaurant to give his presentation. Calliope told him she had to work late, but wished him the best of luck. Instead of going to the office, Calliope met up with a process server. This wasn't just any process server. This guy looked like he belonged on a football field. Right in the middle of Vance's big presentation, while he was talking about trust and integrity, the doors to the private dining room swung open. The massive process server walked right up to the podium, interrupting Vance mid-sentence. He handed Vance a thick manila envelope and said loudly, "You've been served." The entire room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Vance's potential clients stared at him in utter shock and embarrassment. Vance opened the envelope with trembling hands, his face draining of all color. It wasn't just divorce papers, it was a comprehensive financial audit and a lawsuit for marital dissipation. Calliope was legally coming after every single dime he had spent on Seraphina. Because she had all the receipts, Vance's expensive dinners and gifts were classified as stolen marital assets. He was completely trapped in a web of his own arrogant making. When Vance finally stumbled home, ready to scream and fight, the house was empty. Calliope had already moved all her belongings out into a luxury apartment downtown. She left him nothing but an empty closet and a note on the kitchen counter. The note just read, "The ATM is closed. Good luck with Seraphina." Vance tried to call her, but his number was blocked on absolutely everything. He tried to log into their bank accounts, only to find he had been locked out entirely. Without Calliope's income to float his fake lifestyle, Vance's financial reality came crashing down. He couldn't afford the mortgage on his own, forcing him to move out within 60 days. Seraphina, realizing her sugar daddy was actually flat broke, dumped him via text message. She literally blocked him the exact same day he told her about the divorce. In the end, Vance had to move into a tiny, run-down studio apartment on the edge of town. Calliope walked away with her career, her savings, and her sanity completely intact. She didn't shed a single tear for the man who tried to use her as a stepping stone. She is now thriving, traveling the world, and living her absolute best life. Okay guys, let's grab another sip of coffee and break this absolute madness down. Because the psychology behind Vance's behavior is genuinely fascinating and horrifying. Vance is a textbook example of an arrogant narcissist who overestimated his own intelligence. He honestly believed he was smarter than a high-level data analyst. Let that sink in. He thought he could outsmart a woman whose literal job is finding hidden patterns. His entitlement blinded him to the reality that Calliope was the only reason he had a lifestyle at all. Narcissists like Vance never respect the people who support them. They just view them as appliances. When an appliance breaks or stops being useful, they feel entitled to just replace it. He called her a boring ATM to his mistress, which is just stomach-churning disrespect. But that disrespect was exactly what gave Calliope the advantage. He underestimated her so completely that he didn't even notice the trap being built around him. Most people get caught up in the emotional whirlwind of betrayal. They want the instant gratification of yelling, crying, and throwing clothes onto the front lawn. But Calliope teaches us the immense power of emotional regulation. By swallowing her immediate rage, she secured her long-term freedom. She treated the divorce not as a heartbreak, but as a hostile corporate takeover. And bringing in Gideon, the shark lawyer, was the best investment she ever made. Legal revenge is always superior to emotional revenge, because the consequences are permanent. Vance wasn't just embarrassed, he was legally bound to repay the money he stole. We also have to talk about the absolute poetry of serving him at his networking event. Vance cared about his image and his fake prestige more than anything else in the world. Destroying that facade in front of the exact people he was trying to impress is chef's kiss. It proves that when you lie about who you are, reality will eventually catch up to you publicly. And let's not forget Seraphina, who is the definition of a shallow opportunist. The second the money dried up, her deep, profound love for Vance vanished into thin air. It's hilarious how quickly affairs fall apart when real-world stress is introduced. They bond over the thrill of secrecy and stolen luxury, not actual human connection. When you remove the stolen funds, all that's left are two terrible people looking at each other. Calliope didn't even have to destroy their relationship. She just removed the financial foundation. The trash literally took itself out. The patience Calliope showed, living with him for 3 months while knowing the truth, is superhuman. Imagine looking at someone across the dinner table, knowing they are planning to rob and abandon you, and still having the discipline to ask them how their day was with a smile. That is weaponized stoicism, and it is absolutely terrifying to behold. If there is one major takeaway from this story, it's about protecting your assets. Never let a partner, no matter how much you love them, have unchecked access to your hard work. Co-mingling finances with someone who doesn't pull their weight is a recipe for disaster. You have to maintain your own financial identity, just in case the person you love becomes a stranger. Calliope survived this because she had her own income, her own career, and her own intellect. She wasn't trapped by circumstance. She had the resources to engineer her escape. Vance thought he was playing chess, but Calliope was playing four-dimensional financial warfare. He lost his wife, his mistress, his home, his reputation, and his fake business, all in one day. It is a beautiful reminder that karma doesn't always act alone. Sometimes she needs a data analyst to help. I honestly want to print out Calliope's exit note and frame it on my wall. The ATM is closed. 3 simple words that completely obliterated a narcissist's ego. I love a story where the villain gets exactly what they deserve without a single voice being raised. The quietest revenge is always the deadliest because they never hear it coming. It just snaps shut like a steel trap in the middle of the night. So, I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. What would you have done if you found those messages on the hidden tablet? Would you have stayed silent for 3 months, or would you have confronted him immediately? Let me know your thoughts. I'll be reading through the comments with my coffee as always. If you loved this quiet, calculated destruction, hit that like button to feed the algorithm. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the tea. Stay smart, keep your receipts, and never let anyone treat you like an appliance. I'm Hazel, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next video.